what we want people to do in the economy. In fact, you'll hear in every debate on the floor of Congress on a stimulus package, what we want to do is get that money into the supply chain so that we can see it turning. I had 3 other businesses I met with yesterday. All 3 said the same thing. They said, it doesn't matter what incentives the government gives to us. The thing that determines whether or not we're hiring more people is whether there's a business environment out there where people are buying things and we have things for them to sell. If they're buying things and they want to buy, we're going to hire the people, whatever we have to pay, wherever it is, because that's just good business practice. Now, what the government does when it's taxing us and taking that money away and spending it is the most elitist of all decisions the government can make. Because what they are essentially saying is they want to put the same dollars back in the economy. It's just that they think they know better how to do it than those individuals and business people. Now here's the problem. It's not that they're wicked, bad people all in government. It's just both groups have totally different incentives. If you are in government, no matter where you are, no matter what you say, the #1 incentive they have is making 51% of the people happy so that they can stay in power. And it doesn't matter whether it's the United States or Iran or wherever it is, that's their goal as a government leader. That's always been the goal that they have. If you're in the private sector, your #1 goal is wealth creation. Now the problem is, both of those two love to ping on each other. If you're in the private sector, you say it's terrible to want to just get 51% of the people to like you. If you're in the public sector, you're saying, isn't corporate America, isn't business America terrible because all they want to do is increase wealth? Well, you can have that debate anytime you want, but when you're in a situation with the economy the way it is now, all you have to do is ask one question. Who would you want to run your business if your job was dependent upon it? If your family's ability to keep their home was dependent upon it? Would you want the person running it whose motive was to keep 51% of the people happy with you? Or would you want the person whose motive it was to run it in the most efficient, economical way possible to keep it going and to create wealth? That's a pretty easy question for us to do, and that's why it's so much smarter for us as a society, especially now, to make sure we're getting those decisions down where the motivations are what we want, where the people can make better decisions, and we can get that economy going in the best possible way we can. Now, the second terrible thing that's happening with this spending is it will take choices away from us from down the road of things we will need to do where we actually need to prioritize and spend dollars that we need to spend. Let me just give you one indication of that. Todd mentioned on bailout and stimulus bills, we were one of 17 people that voted against all of those. And we did it under President Bush as well as under President Obama. And we heard all the same arguments under both presidents of just why you had to do it. But here was the difficulty that you had. If you take just the bailout bills and stimulus bills, forget this health care bill, which is just going to be devastating to the economy. Forget this budget, the last budget that came in, the largest in the history of the world, not just the history of the United States. Just take the bailout bills and stimulus bills that were passed, and then assume that we'll never pay the interest back. Because I have not heard, and I challenge anybody here, if you've heard of one even far-fetched proposal of how you pay the principal back. I haven't heard even a far-fetched one, that you can hear. But if you assume that we're not going to pay the principal back anytime soon, the interest carry on those bailout bills and stimulus bills, just the interest carry, would pay the entire budget for all of NASA. It would pay the entire budget for all of the National Science Foundation, which is all of our scientific research. It would pay the entire budget for all of the Department of Transportation. It would pay the entire budget for the FBI, the entire budget for the Department of Justice, the entire budget for every operation of the White House, the entire budget for every operation of Congress, and every Army Corps of Engineers project in the country combined. That's just interest. No one in the debate ever sits down and says, should we spend this money in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, however long, and have it gone? so that we, for the rest of our lives, our children, our grandchildren, will take the budgets of all these other things off the table and completely gone for as long as we can imagine until we pay that principal back. That is a very, very difficult decision for us. And let me tell you, one of the places it comes back to roost. Right now in the Navy, we have a policy by the Navy that we need 313 ships in our Navy. I think that's too low. I don't think we can defend the country with 313 ships. But let's assume the Navy's correct. The shipbuilding plan that came out this year, last year the administration refused to even put the shipbuilding plan out, because even though the law requires it, because they didn't want us to see the numbers and see where they were. This year they presented a plan that by their argument would take us not to 313 ships, but to 300 ships. OMB ran their figures and said, you don't get to 300 ships, you will only get to 270 ships. Now, why is that scary? Because the Chinese this year are up to 290 ships. That means that for the first time in our lifetime, the Chinese have 290 ships. We are now at 283, but on target to go to 270. That's a scary thought. The other thought is this. While we're sitting here, the Chinese are hitting our computers 128 times per minute for espionage purposes. In addition to that, they have developed a kinetic weapon, and they are working on lasers to take out our communication satellites, and we have almost no defenses to our communication satellites. Now, the reason I say that is crucial is because in the last few months, the White House Security Council has downgraded, even in the light of all of that, the intelligence priority on China from priority 1 to priority 2. Priority 2 is the same intelligence priority we put on earthquakes and hurricanes. The CIA director and Homeland Security Director both screamed against it, and what the White House said was, we don't have the resources to do the intelligence on China. Now, that to me is where we're going to be going when we are spending so much money. We can't build the ships that we need to defend the country. We can't even get the intelligence collection that we need to make sure we keep America safe. Now, the third observation I just want to throw out to you is this, of what spending does and this increase that we've had. On the wall of my office, I've shared this with some of you been gracious enough to come up and visit us. I have a copy of the Declaration of Independence and the 56 signers of that document. But I don't have it up there just for the looks. I firmly believe that the Declaration of Independence is the foundational document of freedom, not just for America, but for the world. So goes that document. I think so goes our legitimacy to freedom. In that document, there are two great propositions. The second one, of course, we all know. You and I have a set of rights. My dad couldn't keep me from getting them. My son couldn't stop me from having them. I couldn't be cheated out of them by the government. But the first proposition was that those rights have been given to us by a creator. That was enormously, enormously important. At the end of that document, those signers signed what they thought was their death warrant. And they did that to pledge their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor for what? Freedom and liberty. When I travel across the country today, I don't care whether it's a general I talk to, an admiral, I challenge you. You go to McDonald's, parties, listen if you aren't hearing the same thing. A few months ago, it was, these people were saying they were frightened. Now these are people who have fought terrorists, who have fought wars, and they're sitting up because of what they see economically happening in the country today. They said they were frightened. Then it moved to where they said they were angry. Now it's moved to this. They said